Well, hello. My name is Peter Watkins. I'm English, an English filmmaker, at this time living in Sweden. And it will be my voice you will hear from time to time during the journey as narrator. It's my intention to give you some additional information and also to comment on the process of the film. I do hope you will not feel that there is anything objective about the information I'll give you. Certainly, all of us working on the journey have tried very hard with our research to make our information as accurate as possible, but I must emphasize that our presentation of the information is biased due to our very strong feelings about the subject of this film.
My name is Erna Buffy. I'm Canadian, and I shall be translating all those you'll hear during the journey who speak to us from Polynesia, Norway, the Soviet Union, France, Mexico, and the island of Lewis in Scotland.
Hello, my name is Margarita Stalker. I am Canadian, and I shall be translating all those you'll hear during the journey who speak to us from Japan, Mozambique, Germany, and Quebec.
The other voice you will hear off-screen is that of Bob Del Tredici, as he shows us photographs from his exhibition At Work in the Fields of the Bomb. Bob is American, and he is now living in Canada.
We're going to look at some photographs that show the way nuclear weapons are made. It's called the Nuclear Weapons Production Complex. This photograph is from the Los Alamos Scientific Museum. This is a glove box for handling plutonium, and these two bombs are the first bombs that were dropped on civilian populations: Nagasaki, Hiroshima. Uranium is the main ingredient for explosive nuclear weapon. But the way it comes out of the ground, it can't be used for bombs. It has to be enriched first. And it's taken in the form of a gas to uranium enrichment plants. This is the first uranium enrichment plant in the world. It's in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. This is the uranium enrichment plant that enriches it to the highest degree. It takes it up to over 90% U-235, which is the uranium element that they need for weapons. These factories are over a mile long, each of these three buildings. They're the biggest industrial structures on the planet. And they operate 24 hours a day and consume as much electricity, they say, as the whole city of Los Angeles on a day-by-day basis. Once the uranium gas is enriched, it is turned into a metal. The uranium gas that is left behind is also turned into a metal. So you have depleted uranium and enriched uranium, both of which are useful for nuclear weapons. The depleted uranium turned into a metal is sent to this factory in Ashtabula, Ohio. It's the smallest bomb factory in the system. It's been in this little town for about 30 years, and not very many people in the town even know that they have a bomb factory in their midst. The centerpiece of the factory is an extrusion press, and in this hole here is inserted a uranium ingot. It is then rammed into with a rod that exerts 40,000 tons of pressure on it, and it stretches it out into a long uranium rod. This uranium rod is red hot when it comes out of the press, and so it is quenched in a well to bring it more or less down to room temperature. That rod is then put in an acid bath, and it's called a pickling solution. This etches out various impurities. And when that acid is washed off, it's then checked over by a technician. In this state, it is referred to as a pickled extrusion. These pickled extrusions are further stretched out into even thinner rods and are then sent to 2 other factories in the United States. One is in Hanford, Washington, and the other is in Savannah River. The Savannah River plant near Aiken is in South Carolina, and it has 5 of these plutonium production reactors. This is where they insert those uranium rods. And the purpose of these reactors is to take that uranium and to transform it into plutonium. And the way they do that is to bombard it with neutrons, and the uranium transmutes into plutonium at these factories. The Savannah River plant is known as the bomb factory by all the people in the area, but the chief public relations officer assured me that it was not a bomb factory because they did not manufacture bombs there. They made only plutonium for eventual use in bombs. He further told me that he knew nothing about the numbers of nuclear weapons or their deployment, and that it wasn't his business to know this, and he made a point of not knowing such things because they didn't pertain to his job.
This soft, beautiful hill lies on the west coast of the Isle of Lewis in the Outer Hebrides, which are sometimes called the Western Isles of Scotland. The hill is in the process of being ripped apart to provide gravel and foundation for the runway of an airfield, a military airfield. Many times a day, lorries provided by local contractors drive back and forth across the island along this route, carrying the remnants of the hill. Their destination is Stornoway on the east of the island, a small and wind-swept airfield near the village of Sandwick. The journey takes an hour or so. As many as 8 to 12 lorries make the journey several times a day. Back and forth. On a stormy night in September, in a school not far from the airfield, I spoke with a community group, Keep NATO Out, or KNO, who by then had been protesting for over 5 years against what was happening at the airfield. These people have been denied information by the system in which they live. They will be the first of many you will meet in this film. I should think many people would be very interested to hear what is this situation with the Stornoway airport. This is probably unknown to many people at the moment.
Probably. Basically, the plans as they've been shown to us so far, the key factor to them, as far as we're concerned, I suppose, or one of the key factors, is the total uncertainty about what's actually happening. In that, in the late 70s, we were informed that the development was basically for the air defence of the United Kingdom, mainland United Kingdom and the islands, against threats like the Russian backfire bomber, which was stationed supposedly in mass numbers on the Kola Peninsula. And other reasons have been given to us for the development of Stornoway, such as that it is for anti-shipping control in the North Atlantic. And when we sort of looked into these various arguments, it became apparent that they didn't really hold in sufficient water to need the creation of a further base at Stornoway, which led us to examine the situation more closely, and various other reasons began to become more apparent as to why the base at Stornoway was necessary.
I asked the group how they had first discovered the British government's plans to develop this airfield into a component within the strategic nuclear arms race.
They pinned a notice on a fence post, which someone came across in the course of an afternoon's walk, announcing the fact that there were going to be some redevelopments taking place at the airport. And it was only when the local community association inquired further into what kind of developments were proposed that it came to light that they were intending to establish a major base. Gradually, it came to light that they were intending to establish a major base, very, very slowly.
I think it's important for us to probably realise even now that we still don't know exactly what's going on, what the base is essentially going to be used for. We've been given all the various arguments, but it's still unclear to many of us, I think, and most of us would agree that it's unclear exactly what's going to happen at Stornoway.
This film is about systems, the systems under which we all live, and the mechanisms they use to deprive us of information and participation.
Told 右の丘みたいなのは何なんですか？ここはね、
What is the mound beside us? This is where the ashes of many A-bomb victims are kept.
40年経ってもやっぱり
After 40 years, they are still left behind?
そういうことですね。
Yes.
どのくらいお亡くなりになったのはどのくらいお亡くなりになったんですか？そうですね。数は死者の数は定かではありませんけども、だいたい12、3万じゃないかと言われておりますね。中にお骨はどのくらい？
How many people died in the A-bomb?
遺族を
No one knows the exact number, but some people say 120 to 130,000.
帰りたくても帰れない人たちが6万から7万、12、3万とも言われております。こちらが死者たちが安置されている場所でございます。
In this small crypt, beneath the Hiroshima Peace Park, are 1,118 urns, each containing the ashes of an identified person killed on August the 6th, 1945. And in pine boxes nearby are the mixed ashes of between 75,000 to 120,000 further victims of the atom bomb. No one even knows who these people are.
A.m. on August the 6th, and in Nagasaki on August the 9th at 11:03 a.m. Both were aerial explosions, so that ground contamination was minimal. It now appears that there was a single area of modest fallout in Nagasaki. The gamma radiation from both bombs extended out to 2,000 to 2,500 meters, whereas the heavier neutron particles traveled a much shorter distance. Note that blast damage and fire occurred well beyond 3,000 meters.
This is the voice of an American doctor in Hiroshima, presenting a slideshow for visitors to the ABCC, the Atomic Bomb Casualty Commission, which was set up by the United States immediately after the war to study the effects of the blast, the heat, and especially the radiation on the victims of the atom bomb. Perched rather like a vulture over Hiroshima, the ABCC, now under joint US-Japanese control and recently renamed the Radiation Effects Research Foundation, studied the A-bomb victims for 30 years, pressuring relatives of the dying and the dead in Hiroshima to make their family corpses available for dissection and bottling. In all cases, the ABCC only studied the victims and constantly refused to treat them. Did you know this? I didn't.
This was the appearance of Hiroshima several days after the bombing. The photograph was taken from the downtown area, looking in a westerly direction through the hypocenter area.
年原爆をした時ですね。どのあたりにお住まいだったんですか？
Well, I lived in the district called Hiroshima, which is 10 to 12 minutes from here.
でそこに住んでいたものはこの母とそして私とこの私の
7 of us were together. My mother, my second eldest brother, his wife, his child, my sister, and me with my child.
妻と子供とそしてこの妹7人家族が住んでたんです。ああ、そうですか。
はい。
This photograph was taken in front of the administration building at the Pantex nuclear weapons final assembly plant in Amarillo, Texas. It shows a man for the government, the Department of Energy, and a man for private enterprise. And that's the way nuclear weapons are made in America. The government and private industry work hand in hand. I asked this man, the chief public relations officer for the government, if he ever had any unusual emotions watching so many nuclear weapons come off the assembly line every day. And he said, it was just like picking up a box of silly putty in a dime store. And he'd been in this business for years and years, and he was pretty typical of the people who worked around these weapons. This is an aerial view of the Pantex plant. It's the biggest employer in Amarillo. And what workers earn there is an equivalent wage for work that is similar to that in the area. So if you assemble vacuum cleaners and you get a certain rate, that's what people get who assemble nuclear weapons in the area. This boomerang-shaped building here is where they do the main assembly. It's a funny kind of conical series of shapes because the roof is full of gravel. They call it a gravel gertie. The roof is full of gravel because occasionally there is the possibility that they could have an accidental explosion. Not a nuclear explosion, but the conventional explosive that starts off the nuclear chain reaction. And if that happens, it will sort of pulverize the plutonium and send it out across the countryside in a cloud of particles. To keep that from happening, the gravel is designed to collapse down and smother everything under it, should such an explosion occur. And that will trap the plutonium particles. The Pantex plant is really the only bomb factory in the system where someone who works for it can't say, we don't make nuclear weapons, we just make parts. Because it's at Pantex where all the parts come together. There's over 2,000 separate parts in a bomb, and they converge on this factory, and when they come out of this factory, they are in the form of a bomb that is ready to explode. Those finished assembled warheads are stored in these little huts that are called igloos. There's supposed to be 2 weapons per igloo in each of these little huts. This is the plant and this is the town where the Bishop of Amarillo came from. He lived in this area, he grew up here, and he served as a bishop in this parish, and yet he did not know that they were assembling nuclear weapons until one of the workers at the plant, who was a deacon in his own church, approached the bishop and asked him for some moral guidance. He wanted to know if it was possible to assemble nuclear weapons and still be a practicing good Christian. And it was that man's need for guidance that told the bishop that in fact this was going on right within the bounds of his parish. So to me, that says that they don't talk a lot about this kind of work.
またはいる上を未来い音を目当てかかてめたおいてほらえばうてふわいろへこびいぷうわへいてめたおいてあえたうわうわたはいる上を未来い音を
このお兄さんは What about this brother?
私が住んでたとこから歩いて
He lived 4 to 5 minutes away from my home.
この兄と
He was with his wife and 2 children,
この絵に描いて
a
る
6-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy.
兄の嫁ですね。それから長男がこの子です。ね。そしてこれが長女。当時6歳です。こちらの方は5歳でした。
Toshiko Saiki will lose 13 of her family tomorrow.
My name is Shelley Douglas, and I live in the Pacific Northwest of the United States in a county that's 95% military employed. And I live here because I think it's the most hopeful place to do peace work. I live on these railroad tracks which go into the Trident submarine base at Bangor. And on these tracks are shipped missile motors to fire Trident II missiles into the air, and also the nuclear warheads for the Trident missiles. This is the house that we live in. And we live there because it enables us to watch the trains. That's how we discovered that the shipments were going into the base. They go down these tracks and in through the gate, and from there they're taken into Strategic Weapons Facility Pacific, which is the storage area for the nuclear weapons. And they're unloaded and stored in bunkers until they're trucked to a wharf on the water and then put into the submarines.
I shall never forget my first impression of the Trident nuclear submarine base at Bangor. A quiet, sleepy country area with the sound of playing children, random, unexplained gunshots, and the wind chimes on a porch. Tourist buses into the base, and the perimeter fence with its television cameras, and the ever-prowling patrol car, guarding a stockpile of nuclear weapons which has the equivalent destructive power of countless millions and millions of tons of high explosive. Within a few yards of the fence, the signs of estate agents advertising beautiful homes in which to live. Al and Jerry lived in one of them with their children before they began their own journey.
We were coming back from church, actually, and we saw a big gathering at the front of Bangor, and so we decided to drive down and see what it was all about. And there were a lot of peace protesters, who objected to the Trident nuclear base in general, and we went by just out of curiosity to see what was going on. And so I had been doing a lot of thinking, and I said, just kind of to throw out the idea to see if I could stir up some kind of a response from my family. And I said, well, maybe next year I think I'll just go ahead and join the march, and I'll be with the peace protesters. And Al, I got my reaction. Al was very firm about it. And go ahead.
I told her that if she ever did, she needn't come home again. And I felt very firm on that commitment because our bread and butter came from the Department of Defense, and I was not at the point where she was, where she had seen and heard a few of the things that were going on.
Hiroshima, the same evening.
Brian Mulroney arrives in Quebec City and says not to expect any miracles. Lebanon is again on the verge of a civil war between the Christians and the Muslims. Yesterday, William Schroeder became the longest living survivor with an artificial heart.
Mesdames, Messieurs, bonsoir.
As I traveled around the world, from Scandinavia to the Soviet Union, to North America, to the Pacific, I talked with many families about the militarization of our planet, to see what they felt about it, and to see what they knew about it, to see how much information they had been given by the television, by their government, or by the school system in their country. I talked of the 25 million soldiers in uniform around the world, and of how many of these are outside their own territories. For example, France, who has nearly 59,000 troops outside her own metropolitan borders. Some of them are here in so-called French Polynesia. I should say that until I began the journey, I had never heard of much of this information, and I wanted to find out if this was the same for other people. They began a series of nuclear tests, suspending the atom bomb balloon container here. This is at least the size of a Hiroshima bomb, if not larger, to, I think, 74, 75, exploding them in the atmosphere over this atoll. I imagine this is the Mururoa Atoll. These photographs are on sale in a newsagent and tobacconist's in Tahiti. This is the atoll of Mururoa, not inhabited, but about 400 kilometers away is another group of islands which are inhabited by Polynesians. These are the shots of the same explosion. I believe it's the same test. In 1975 or 76, they buried the tests underground, under the atoll. So instead of contaminating the atmosphere, it's now seriously believed that they're contaminating the Pacific. As you have just heard, at the time that I began the journey, I thought that the atoll of Mururoa was uninhabited. In fact, there are a considerable number of French and Polynesian workers, military and civilian, living on the test site, which is referred to by the French as the CEP, the Experimental Center for the Pacific. Here, on the island of Tahiti, some 1,400 kilometers from Mururoa, is the home of one of these workers, Joachim Luca, who lives here with his wife Augustine and his sister Hinano.
Joachim, why did you leave Mururoa?
E pahono dua ni e te ni ata oe te ho e pahono ra uhi e roa e piti tumu papu mai te. Ho e tumu mata mua roa o i ho ia te whiwhi utua whare. Te atea a te tānei tāna wahine te ore ra one i te paari ra mo tāna mo te mari.
One reason was the household difficulty, the separation between man and wife, and also my sure knowledge that it was disaster this object would bring us. Tell us more about this disaster you speak of. Well, let me take as a sort of simile for this disaster the octopus with its cerebral center and its tentacles. From its tentacles, the first trouble that one of them will bring is the trouble within the home, the distance between man and wife. The next trouble is the arrival of these white people and military personnel onto this land. These military people have become a source of great trouble between husband and wife and their children. There are all kinds of difficulties that the atomic explosive has brought onto this land upon deep reflection, amongst which the disaster that we are experiencing in our daily living, especially about our meat and fish. So that you may know about me, I lived in the Tuamotu Islands for a long time. I spent my early years there until I was 17, and I can tell you that amongst the Tuamotus and on the atoll where I lived, there was not a single poisonous fish in that land.
Le sommet des Irlandais s'ouvre demain à Québec.
The Irish summit opens tomorrow in Quebec City. An Irishman by birth, Ronald Reagan will be the second American president to visit the provincial capital since Franklin Roosevelt. It will be a two-day session with Prime Minister Mulroney, also an Irishman.
Le reportage de Francine Bastien.
A report from Francine Bastien. Wrapped in a thick cloak of protocol and reception, the Mulroney-Reagan summit has a full agenda. As for protocol, the American head of state will not be welcomed to Canada by the Governor-General Jean Sauvé because, as the Prime Minister's office explains, this is a working visit. The only Canadian star at this summit will therefore be Brian Mulroney.
Ici Francine Bastien à Québec.
Throughout this film, we will be showing you examples from around the world of current television public affairs coverage, particularly the evening news. And in order to show you the increasing rapidity of television cutting, a phenomenon which is as marked in the contemporary cinema, we will indicate each direct cut or edit from one image to another with a noise such as or occasionally you will hear when additional information such as a map or a caption is jumped onto the screen on top of the original image. We will also indicate in this way the internal cuts we have made to our own scenes of dialogue in the film. Please remember that each of these cuts, or changes in image, means that a specific editorial decision has been made by the television producer, or by the editor, or by the film director, to change the primary visual information we are receiving at that moment in time. In other words, if a scene is on the screen for, say, 5 seconds, and then it is changed or cut, a specific editorial decision has been made that we, the audience, are only to be permitted 5 seconds during which to consider that image and its sound and all the complex information they may contain. William Fox is the press secretary for the Canadian Prime Minister. It is his job to arrange every second of Brian Mulrooney's contact with the media.
Well, I think Americans will be quite taken with this reality.
And in every way possible to use the media to create favorable publicity. This is called communications strategy.
Vue commune sur la défense du nord du continent.
A cutaway, a secondary image which temporarily replaces the original, is an often used device to hide a cut which is made in the original continuity of a scene. Usually this manipulation is made in order to change or condense a spoken statement so that we never hear or see it in its original form.
Les pourparlers entre le gouvernement américain et le gouvernement canadien dans le dossier des pluies acides.
The discussion between the American government and the Canadian government on the issue of acid rain has, for 3 years, for all intents and purposes, been suspended.
De la part des Américains que nous avons un problème commun.
There is not even an acceptance among the Americans that we have a common problem.
Je vais juste te demander, Francine, peut-être juste une petite affaire pour bloquer une lumière, là. De t'avancer juste une petite affaire. OK.
Enrobé d'une épaisse couche de protocole et de réception, le sommet Mulroney-Reagan comporte un ordre du jour chargé.
The news item of Brian Mulrooney's arrival, for which Francine Bastien is recording the topo, had 8 separate scenes cutting from one to another during a total of 67 seconds. That is one change of image every 8 seconds.
Ici Francine Bastien à Québec.
Sans faire un autre, Francine.
Let's just do another one.
Enrobé d'une épaisse couche de protocole et de réception, le sommet Mulroney-Reagan comporte un ordre du jour.
2 of our principal concerns in this film are to do with money and time, and the ways in which we use them on this planet.
Parce que, explique-t-on au bureau du Premier ministre, il s'agit d'une visite de travail. La seule vedette canadienne de ce sommet sera Brian Mulroney. Ici Francine Bastien à Québec. Oui, parce que j'ai des larmes dans les yeux.
Oh, the wind is terrible.
Oh, le vent, moi, c'est Est-ce que mes cheveux sont corrects d'abord?
Oui.
Is my hair all right, Bernard?
Je vais juste te demander, Francine, peut-être juste une petite affaire.
I'll just ask you, Francine, maybe just one little thing.
Juste une petite affaire.
To block the light, just move up a bit.
Plus de ce côté-là. Encore une petite affaire.
As the journey progresses, we will be showing you at least 2 of the methods used by our societies to measure time. One method is with a, and the other method is with a growing death rate